This training will teach you how to enter an activity into AMC's activities database. In order to be able to do this, you need to be an approved leader, and you need to be given rights in the system by your committee. To add an activity, look for the Events box on the left side and select the committee for which you want to add an event. You will only be able to see those committees for which you have rights in the system, so if you are only an approved leader for the Outings Committee, this would be the only one that appears in the drop-down. The trip listings are the first point of access to AMC activities for many people, including new and prospective members. So make sure when you are entering your activity to keep this perspective in mind. Avoid terms that are not easy to understand if you're not familiar with the AMC, and make your listing positive and welcoming so that new people may be motivated to join in the fun. All of the required fields in the trip entry form are expanded at the top of the page and have red asterisks next to them. The first field that you have to fill out is title, which is arguably the most important one because it is the first thing that people will see upon searching the database. Because of this, you want to make sure that it gives all of the information needed to understand the trip at a glance. The location or destination, the duration or distance, and the level of difficulty as it applies to your trip. It's also important to make the title catchy or interesting if possible. For example, for a trip on the New England Scenic Trail, followed by a visit to a local brewery, you could write this, and then clarify it. You then have to select the start date and time, so the date is required. I'll say the 12th. The start time is not required. You can click no start time if you don't want to use it. However, it could be a good idea to use it if you are hosting a one-day or evening event, because this will allow people to know if they can make it, whether or not they want to. The next thing you have to select is the region. So if I were to be doing this Amherst hike, I would select Massachusetts Pioneer Valley, and after selecting region, it would auto-populate the state and the country required fields. Under the activity section, make sure that you select all of the activities that are relevant to the event. You can do this by holding down the CTRL key on your keyboard and then clicking on the different activities that apply. So for example, for this hike on the NET and a social afterwards, I could select hiking and social events at the same time. Avoid selecting more activities than are applicable because that leads to confusion for the people searching the database. In the description box, here is what you should include. Make sure that you are descriptive, use full sentences, and short paragraphs. So break up your paragraphs with breaks like this, which is easier on the eyes than a giant block of text. You want to make sure that your listing is descriptive and positive so that you make people that see the listing want to join you. Next, make sure to give all of the information that a person needs to decide whether or not they want to participate. This includes describing the trip, the distance, the elevation, the terrain, the scenery, the difficulty, etc. All the details that somebody needs to know what exactly to expect and what they are getting into. Saying something about the place you are going is also a good idea for people that are not familiar with the park that you may be visiting or the mountain that you may be hiking. If you can provide an estimate of the duration of the activity or estimate a return time, this will help people know if they are able to participate. Also make sure that you mention what is needed in terms of clothing, gear, food, and water. And most of all, make it sound fun and interesting. We're not leaders without participants, so it's important to make this first impression a positive one. And again, remember to include all details that a person will need to decide whether or not they can and want to participate in the event. In the Leader 1 box, you need to enter the information about the person leading the activity. This first field verifies the name you enter with the activities database permissions and also checks for current membership. Leader bio and photo are not required. However, they're encouraged. Many people these days like to get an idea of who they're going on an activity with. Adding a few words about yourself in a photo will help them feel more at ease about signing up for that first event with AMC. Other useful tools on the trip entry form can be found under the Additional Info box. You can add testimonials for, say, an instruction course that you're giving. You can get a quote from somebody who was a past participant. You can add links. So for example, for this New England Scenic Trail hike, I could add the website to the New England Scenic Trail. And you can use this GPS map function, which will add a map to your listing and also add your trip or activity or event as a pin on the maps on AMC's website. There's a separate training for this GPS map function if you don't yet know how to use it. You also need to select a registration option for your trip. You can choose to not require registration, but if you want people to sign up for your trip before going on it, there are 3 different options. There's one where people contact a different person to register. There's the AMC registration form, which gets them to sign up on this website. Or there's an external link to a different site if you have a form that's not part of activities.outdoors.org. And before you submit your trip, it'd be a good idea to preview it to make sure that everything looks the way it should. And once you're confident that it is the way you want it, click Submit to submit your activity for approval. And that is trip entry.